Welcome back, Mission Driven Moms. Years ago, I was pregnant with number 5 and very busy running around with lots of little kids and working on my own liberal education. And I had been working on that for several years, reading a lot of greats, studying really hard, being mentored. And I chanced upon an organization that was just starting up. It was for women. It was a phenomenal idea. And it caught fire really quickly. There were a lot of people interested in what was happening. The founder was an amazing woman, God-fearing, good, driven, on-the-ball lady who had formed a board, and they were choosing different curriculum for women to read, and it really had a lot of potential. And what happened was I got kind of pulled into it, and I kind of started being asked certain questions, and eventually the director and I had a handful of conversations. And it was such an interesting experience because it really taught me something very important about life mission and about the importance of these 4 foundational laws, because what came out of those conversations was it became very clear to me and then eventually to the director that she wasn't quite ready to run this organization. She had a lot of those foundational laws in place, and her family was in pretty good order. Her relationship with God was definitely fantastic, but especially her education was just not what it needed to be. And the problem was that she wanted to turn around, and although she could form a board that could put together a pretty vibrant curriculum, one of the things that she kept talking to me about was training mentors for this program. And I finally just had to say to her, I don't think it's the right model for an educational organization that the director doesn't have the kind of education. She hasn't read the things that she's teaching. She doesn't have the education she wants her students to eventually get, and that she doesn't feel that she's in a position to train the mentors herself. And I knew as I said that to her that I wasn't ready either, and that it was going to take some time and energy for her to be ready and for me to be ready. And so it's interesting because eventually over the next few months, it didn't fall apart, but it just became clear that it wasn't time. It just wasn't time. And she eventually went on to other projects. I don't have any contact with her. I'm not even sure what she's doing now. I'm sure something wonderful. And she got more serious about working on her education through that whole process. And the reason that, in her specific circumstance, it was a really pointed, I need to have this for what I'm trying to give. But on a broader scale, this kind of thing happens quite often, that people get an idea and it's a great idea. I remember when I was attending, and they're not ready for it. When I was attending this liberal arts school, one of my mentors said to me one time that they would get a lot of really excited freshmen, and those freshmen would go through and they'd studied hard and they work hard all year, and then they lose a whole bunch of them between freshman and sophomore year. And I said, well, why is that the case? And she said, it's because they get on fire about mission, and they get some sense of self, and they get a little bit of education under their belt, and they're ready to go off and save the world. And what happens when people do that is it just doesn't work. They're just not ready. And so I just want to encourage each of you to return back to the Mission Driven Life book. If you don't have a copy, go to the Mission Driven Mom and grab it and read about the 10 booms. And I can show you that pattern in person after person after person. Even David Green, the founder of Hobby Lobby, talked about how he was horrible in school and he didn't have a college education, but he spent his spare time reading dozens and dozens of biographies. He loved to read about the great people in history. And he has gone on to do amazing things and have amazing impact for good in the world, truly a mission-driven individual. And that education was part of it. Connecting that education to Scripture, to your core book, seeing where those principles really connect, understanding what solutions need to be provided in the world that will really be principle-centered and that will really last. Developing that empathy that you need to have for other people, and to stop doing all the judging and comparing and really reach out in an empathic servant leadership way. And of course, that's what the Academy is prepped to prepare you for, and we focus really heavily on that in level 3 of the academy. But regardless of all of that, I just want to say that for you to really hone in, really read those chapters well, really think about the experiences the 10 booms have, really analyze yourself in your own life, be honest. Look inside and ask yourself, am I really living this law? Do I really have a solid foundation for life mission? Am I really clear about what's required of me in order to be prepared to really be a leader that isn't going to get pulled back home because everything's out of control, or that isn't going to lose their faith because they didn't have a strong enough relationship with God, or is not going to be able to find solutions that last because they don't really have the education they need to have. And that was the case with this friend of mine and her women's organization. And for many people, it's the case because the kind of education that's required for mission isn't given very many places in the world today. So that's my challenge for you. Go back, revisit the book, look at the foundational laws, analyze your life, and decide where you need to begin and get busy living those 4 foundational laws, because I promise you, God has a special work for you to do. And as you discover who you are, as you put your life in line with principles, as you get that education that you need, the time will come when you hear the call and you will really be prepared, and it won't crumble and fall apart on you, and it won't ruin your family life when the time comes, because you will be truly prepared. If this was helpful, please pass it on to a friend and share it. Make sure to visit our Facebook group, the Mission Driven Mom Mastermind, so we can get to know you and attend those Facebook Lives and book discussions that we have there, and we'll see you next time.